and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson, and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm DJ Ross. I am in an underground bunker at an undisclosed location.
That's really your best bet at this point, DJ.
Right. Don't tell anyone where I am.
Okay. Each week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, that list includes Animal Crossing, New Horizons, and Resident Evil 3 New Horizons.
Oh, is everybody on theme this week?
Mm-hmm. Actually, it's just Resident Evil 3.
Just Resident Evil, trying to get with the times, trying to confuse people at retail.
Yep.
Like, you get the New Horizons game?
It's a village sim, yeah, and then occasionally zombies show up.
It's like Animal Crossing 50 years later.
Right.
Or 50 years before.
It's a prequel. That's it, yeah. Animal Crossing is a post-apocalyptic Resident Evil game.
Yeah, right, because of good escapism. Speaking of post-apocalypse, how are you holding up? How's things over there?
That was a beautiful segue. That was great. Doing okay, not bad. I've been fortunate enough to be able to kind of do some work from home and keep getting paid, so that's a plus.
Yeah, that sounds good.
My girlfriend works for a bank, so she is still gainfully employed and working because people need money. So yeah, we're hanging in there as long as we can hang in there. Not driving each other crazy yet. I see a lot of tweets and Facebook posts from couples that are just about at wit's end, and I'm like, guys, it's been a week. it's 7 days. Calm down.
Right.
Yeah, but no, doing okay. Yourselves. Hanging in there. Yeah,
that's good.
The dogs are thrilled that we're home all the time. That's a plus.
I've heard that. Yeah, the dogs, pets love it. Depending on what kind of pet it is, anyway.
I've heard dogs love it, cats hate it. That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Cats are like, when am I supposed to get in all my, when am I supposed to just destroy everything while my owner is out?
Can't nap for 23 hours a day with all this noise.
Plus, there's no toilet paper to just unravel endlessly.
Right. You got to keep that shit on lockdown.
How
about you? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I was telling people, I forget who I was talking to earlier, but no, actually it was you.
Oh.
I was telling you that, I've done a few kind of long-term freelance stints where I did not go into an office or anything to do my job. So it's a very familiar situation to me, just being cooped up at home 24 hours a day. Although this time I would always I don't know. I kind of miss the freedom of just going out to get groceries or, go to the drive-thru in the middle of the night. It's a little weird not really being able to do that. Yeah.
Everything has this kind of secondary level of will there be people there? Will I come in contact with other human beings? What is the best time? What is my best strategy for avoiding that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we did a grocery store excursion the other night, trying to sort of plan it for later in the evening when it would be less busy and there'd be less likelihood of us sort of waiting in line. But we were not the only ones who had that thought. So it was busier at the grocery store than I was prepared for. And you have that weird moment coming down the aisle towards another person where you're like, if I don't look at them,
it's like, what do I do?
What do I do? I can't get 6 feet away. So yeah, just trying to, be analytical of the choices that I make on a daily basis without losing my mind.
Yeah, it's gonna be a few weeks before. Actually, I wonder what's gonna be like in a few weeks. Whether this will just feel like the new normal. Really, like you said, strategically planning every kind of social interaction.
Yeah. Man, we were doing a lot of DoorDash. We spent a small fortune at the grocery store trying to stock up, but DoorDash is like, support your local businesses. We're waiving all of our delivery fees, so we're like, let's get lunch from our favorite restaurant down the street brought to our door. So this is going to be the quarantine where I gain 20 pounds probably.
I feel like I'm going to lose weight. Even though I'm not I've just been sitting in this chair since we stopped recording last week, essentially. But I'm just not going out to eat garbage all the time anymore.
Yeah. No, I'm having people bring garbage to my house.
Right, garbage on demand. Yeah. I'm wondering, I don't know if I'm taking this too far, but I'm just I want to order takeout from places, but I don't know if that is the smartest thing to do because it is just going to be stuff that other people have handled. And it's
Sure, yeah.
Again, I don't know how many nights in a row I can just eat rice and beans and pasta at home.
I got through college on that, so it can be done, but
Yeah, I think the answer is for quite a while, if need be. But like I said, it takes some readjusting.
Yeah. But it has been nice to have Animal Crossing this weekend to kind of dump my anxiety into, my stress into this kind of beautiful, sunny world where nothing really ever goes bad. And the most stressful thing that happens is maybe occasionally my fishing rod breaks.
Before we just do the plunge fully into Animal Crossing, can I just toot my own horn for a few minutes here?
Sure, I'm toot away.
So I just want to go back to Final Fantasy for a minute because I'm still talking about patch week.
Okay.
Last week this thing happened. They released a new kind of crafting, not really mini game, but just like crafting content.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, like a few years ago, one of the cities in the game got destroyed, and as part of this new patch, it's actually like the second part of this effort, but they're having people, the players, the crafters specifically, contribute kind of crafting projects in order to rebuild this entire city, which I think is exciting.
Yeah.
But as part of this, they announced that, okay, so this phase of the reconstruction, we are going to have this competitive element where depending on how much you contribute, you will eventually be placed on a leaderboard at the end of this this season, like this crafting season, which lasted a week or so, like maybe a week and a half from when the patch came out. And I was like, that's interesting, because up until this point, crafting has been largely, not competitive. It's just kind of a thing you do on the side, whether it's you need a new weapon or some fancy piece of furniture for your house, so you just get the materials and you make it, and it's not like somebody else made it better than you, so they get ranked higher or something like that.
So they're sort of force ranking your charitable nature, how giving you are.
Well, they set it up in a way where there are like different levels of crafts that you can turn in, and some are more difficult than others. And in fact, a new thing also added in this patch is they added expert crafting recipes for each profession. And the way crafting worked up to this point is it's actually a fairly elaborate little mini game where you have to first of all craft an item to completion, but at the same time you sort of can do all these sort of additional crafting moves or abilities on it to create an item of higher quality. So if you do that enough, you produce something that is, like if it's a piece of gear, it's much more effective than if you just created a normal quality item.
Gotcha. So it's not about just collecting kind of basic resources, like, I don't know, the challenge is we need 1 million pieces of wood, and everybody in the community just strip mines the entire forests surrounding the town. You actually have to sort of like build a thing and then contribute that to the project.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of strip mining involved. But these mastercrafts are mostly for the leaderboard component. Because up to this point, you could make crafts of varying levels of quality or whatever, but the crafting process was kind of solved to a point where people would just figure out, okay, so if I do this ability like 3 times in a row and then I do this other one, and then I use this like special finishing move or whatever, it will always create this very high quality item. To the point where you can just set up a macro in the game to execute all the commands in a row. So you just click one button and then 30 seconds later it spits out this item and you're like, all right, I crafted it. So as part of this patch, they introduced these expert level crafts where essentially they made that impossible to do because it's like a lot of random kind of conditions can occur while you're in the middle of this recipe that means you have to adapt around them to if you really want to still max out the quality on each recipe. And these were like, first of all, it's kind of fascinating because this is the first really advanced sort of crafting content that's been in the game. And like for the first couple of days, people were just like, I don't even understand how you can make this recipe because it really doesn't work like any of the crafting projects in the game. But eventually people figured it out, and they just figured out that you essentially need to, like, you can't use the macros for it. You can't auto craft it. You have to just sit down and pay attention to this craft that you're working on. And sometimes each individual item would take like up to 5 minutes to complete if you really wanted to max it out, which is really unusual and totally unlike what everybody is used to when they talk about crafting in this game. But in order to get on the leaderboards in any significant measure, you needed to just be churning out these expert level crafts. So I kind of had my eye on this thing at the start. Whenever somebody talks about like an online leaderboard in a game and the competition is like essentially the rest of the internet, I'll just be like, okay, that's fine. Other people can do that. I don't need to be a part of that, because there's always going to be that one group which is just like, oh wow, they did the same kind of group that is you run into them in Tetris 99, and they are the ones that are just T-spinning constantly. And you're just like, I can't compete with this. This is out of my league. But I got to looking at these leaderboards, and they would post updates every day at the end of the day just to show how much progress people had made. So I got to watching those and kind of figuring out how many crafts people were turning in. Be like, some people are working on these much harder than other people, but it's not everybody. Like, I feel like there's some space on the bottom of these leaderboards. So I kind of picked one out and started turning out these expert crafts. So for like the last week, instead of doing like the regular battle content in the game, I would log in and get into my little crafting nook and just throw on Star Trek episodes and start churning out these expert crafts, just like 5 minutes at a time doing these things. So, and then I turn them all in and check the leaderboard again at the end of the day, just be like, all right, this is shaping up nicely.
Mm-hmm. And you were pleased with your placement on the leaderboard?
Well, it got very intense toward the end, because I think other people started to pick up on this also. They were like, oh, well, people are kind of, other people are watching the leaderboards as well and sort of extrapolating how many more crafts they'll need to turn in to maintain their position on the leaderboard. So it started getting to the point where everybody's just turning in more and more items every day, approaching the end. I was just like, well, this is actually getting pretty intense. And then I realized there was this whole other group of people who were not turning in items, and they were just hoarding them so they could turn them in all at once.
Oh, gotcha.
So I was like, oh, this is a little dangerous. They're like the eBay snipers of Final Fantasy XIV crafting. So now I'm just like, okay, so now there's this whole other variable I need to figure out. So the last 48 hours or so that this ranking was open, I was kind of hopping back and forth between refreshing the leaderboards and doing all these weird calculations and just crafting mindlessly. I think I went through an entire season of Star Trek Voyager or something.
Wow. So
it got down to the last hour, and everybody was like, there's so many people in the area where you actually have to turn in the crafts. It was like the game was struggling to just display everybody at once. So I turned everything in and like put my tools away, just kind of stepped away from the game for a little while, because there was going to be, they were going to take the boards down for a few hours while they calculated everybody's positions. Mm-hmm. And it was a very stressful 3 hours, because I was like, I don't know what to do now. I'll just try and relax, watch the rest of this season of the show. But I don't know, it was very suspenseful because there was this just delay. I was feeling pretty good about the number of crafts that I turned in, but there was still this, the shadow group of everybody who had not turned in stuff.
Who was just going to bomb it at the last minute, right?
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know if they're turning in just millions of these things. I don't know. Correct. Maybe there aren't any people doing this, but there was a feeling that there were. So finally, it rolled around. It was like past midnight last week. They updated the leaderboards, and I was in the top 5 for my prediction. Yay! So I was very pleased about that. There was an audible sigh of relief when the pages came back up. I was just like, oh my god, did it, and now I can just rest in peace. I don't know what I'm going to do next.
And you screenshotted that for posterity, of course, and
I
printed it out and hung it on your wall.
I got you get a little in-game reward. You get a title that you can wear over your head, which is cool. Very fancy. But I was looking at the spread on this leaderboard, and it was like, okay, so the top 4 just turned in an unbelievable number of projects. They're just like way beyond everyone else. So those are the people, like those are the ones I was really worrying about at the start.
Yeah. And there's a huge fall off to you.
But yeah, and then the rest of it, it was like the bottom, like 5 or 6, they were all within like 1 or 2 crafts of each other.
Oh, wow.
Like, because it'll show you the number of points each person accrued. Mm-hmm. And I was a single craft above the person below me. Oh, wow. Which I was just like, that is kind of unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So, when people talk about, every vote matters and all that, they're just like, nah, no, it doesn't. It's like, sometimes it does.
At least in this case, it did, yeah.
I thought about all those situations where I was just like, I should really go to bed, or I could do one more of these things. I'll do one more. And it ended up making a difference. It was unbelievable. And just going down the list, it was like one more craft that was keeping everybody separated throughout the rest of the top 10, which was really unbelievable.
Wow.
So that was my week last week. While I was trying to, I was taking advantage of the, the social distancing.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
My foray into competitive crafting.
That's interesting. I'm trying to sort of imagine. I'll have to Google it. What the process looks like. Is it like Fantasy Life, where like crafting was like a little mini game, and if you sort of hit there's like a rhythm to it, and if you hit the kind of the notes at the right time, you got a perfect item.
It's like Fantasy Life was an extremely simplified version of it, I would say. Okay. I don't know what you could easily compare it to. Like Fantasy Life did, it's roughly the same in that you were kind of going through this process, and there are opportunities to like enhance the quality of whatever you're making. Like if you play the rhythm game perfectly,
right?
If I remember correctly.
Oh, Dragon Quest XI does that as well, yeah.
I don't know if I've done the crafting in Dragon Quest. Oh, no, actually, that's a good comparison. Yeah, I did a couple recipes in that.
Yeah.
It's kind of I didn't get really advanced into it. I felt like there were a lot of abilities I needed to unlock for that. But my feeling is that would be actually pretty similar to it, where, you could use this ability or you can use this other ability. But, if you use one at the wrong time, it can really screw up your craft, or instead of having the really amazing results you want.
Right. And then you've wasted those resources.
Right.
Gotcha.
So imagine just doing only that for a week.
No, because if I and I have enjoyed crafting mechanics in video games as they've occurred over the years. I think sometimes they can be fun or add an additional layer of I don't know, something to a game, a little more immersion. But no, after kind of the stressful, quasi-stressful experience of playing Animal Crossing New Horizons over the last couple of days, and having to scrounge up materials to do everything in the game, it has, I've kind of come out on the other side of it where I'm like, this is actually really annoying. And
it really depends on how they implement their crafting system, like how it works.
Yeah. Because
initially I still really like the one in 14, just because you have to be kind of engaged, especially when you're doing the expert crafts. And it's not just like, I don't know, like The Last of Us, where it's like, hey, do you have scissors and some twine or whatever? Okay, then good. Then click the button and you make the thing instantly.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty much how the Tomb Raider games have sort of deployed it as well. Do you have gunpowder and a tin can? Well, then you can make a bomb, right? So, yeah.
There's no actual process involved in creating it.
Right. Yeah. Whereas everything, all of sort of the tools that you need to be able to progress in Animal Crossing require some degree of collecting resources and then combining them. Hopefully you know the recipe. And then those things break. So you have to lather, rinse, repeat to make them over again. Or you get a better recipe for a pretty good version of it and it lasts slightly longer. But the way that those things work in Animal Crossing is you have to make the flimsy version and then you modify it to turn it into the pretty good version. So you're still kind of going through the process of making something from scratch, which I get it.
Which is an insane nightmare.
It's a bit of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. Yep. Animal Crossing.
Mm-hmm.
It came out.
It finally came out. They said it couldn't be done.
Right.
I don't know who said that, but yeah.
So Animal Crossing is a fantasy game, which I don't know, poses the question: what if you could go outside your house?
Yeah. And it is smart in that in Animal Crossing on your deserted island, you're the only human. You're really just surrounded by animals. So there are no. I don't believe COVID-19 has crossed the species barrier. So people are not infecting their dogs and cats. So yeah, you're pretty much safe as long as you avoid contact with other humans. And there are no other humans unless you invite them over. In which case,
unless you have people in your house who share your Switch, right?
Yeah. Who does that?
I don't know.
People with kids. No, I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't want to stress this analogy out much longer, but it's yeah. it is an Animal Crossing game, except the hook in this one now is that you start life on a relatively deserted island with few resources and a tent and just 2 villagers. And everything that you want to build on the island requires some degree of effort on your behalf to implement. So, if you catch enough bugs and fish, you can invite somebody to the island who will open a museum. But that museum requires you to collect resources to build. As more commerce happens on your island, then you want to upgrade the shop. And oh, by the way, we need to collect 120 pieces of something so we can build a bigger shop. And every now and then the little villagers around you will be like, here's 3 pieces, as if they were helping.
They're doing their part.
Thank you for putting in that 0.01% towards the total.
Yeah
It just goes back to the public service or public works projects from New Leaf. I'd be like, hey, I'm going to put in a light board or a little park or something like that, and there's a little donation box where everybody can chip in a few bells, and I will pay 180,000 bells, and my neighbors will put in 5 bells.
Right, Well, I don't have any bells, so here's a T-shirt. Do what you can with that.
Yeah. Maybe you could sell that T-shirt and get 2 bells.
Right.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting because one of the issues I've had with every successive Animal Crossing game is it just feels like you spend a lot of the initial hours of the game just trying to reestablish sort of your status quo from the previous game.
Yeah.
I was huge in the Wild World, and then getting into City Folk and then New Leaf, I was just like, man, remember that nice house I had in Wild World? And I had so much money and all this furniture. Where did it all go?
Yeah.
When will life be like that again? And I was kind of expecting that to be sort of the flow with this one. And it is to some degree, but in this case, it feels like everything is happening on a much more prolonged timetable.
Yeah. And I think a few people that I've seen tweets from, and certainly people sort of chiming in on our Discord, have taken some umbrage with kind of the snail's pace at which the opening hours of New Horizons seems to happen. Yeah, I think it's probably the first Animal Crossing game for a lot of gamers, and certainly maybe a generation of gamers who have never gotten into something like this before. But for those of us who are slightly more experienced at the pace at which an Animal Crossing game happens, it's a little Spartan in the beginning. It's a little light in terms of objectives and focus.
I think I'm largely okay with it.
Me too.
It's taken me a little bit of time to just readjust to the fact that Animal Crossing is a very slow game. And then sometimes there are just times when you need to put it down because stuff is not going to progress for you until literally the next calendar day.
Right.
But, once I got back in that headspace, I was just like, okay, I remember how this works. And I'm actually kind of fascinated by how different it feels so far, because you're not doing... I feel like the progression in Wild World and New Leaf were largely the same. It was a little different in New Leaf because you were the mayor, and different aspects of the game worked differently than they did in the previous games. Yeah. But in this, you get to this island and there are no public services at all, really. There's just the little what do they call the little tent that Nook has set up?
Resident services.
Resident services, yeah.
Yeah.
But even that is you go in.
It's the town hall, but it's a tent. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's nothing going on really. There's just really the most basic stuff.
Right.
And it feels like you're gradually unlocking things, but even the way stuff unlocks in this is slightly different than it has been in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's smart that it keeps you relatively confined in the beginning.
You can't even go to the whole island at the start,
right,
which was a huge change.
Right. You can see the whole island for the most part, but for the first day or two, depending on the pace at which you play it, you can't cross the water to see the rest of it. I'm 4 days in at this point that we're recording this, and I still don't have the ability to get to the higher plateaus in my island. So there are parts of the island I've not seen or explored yet.
Yeah.
So I think it is probably smart to keep you corralled to a certain degree at the beginning of this thing. to teach you mechanics, to layer in objectives and goals for you, rather than sort of giving you the entire blank slate of this big island to sort of reckon with in the beginning. Yeah, and that is very different from previous Animal Crossing games where you come to town and the town pre-exists before you. You are in New Leaf. You're coming to a place that is fully populated, that has 10 residents, or if I remember correctly, at the beginning, somewhere near 10 residents, and you are slotted into the mayor role by force of accident, I think, if I remember correctly, from the beginning of New Leaf. So yeah, to sort of come into a thing that is essentially a blank slate is a little unusual from an Animal Crossing perspective. But it is, I don't know, where's my brain going with this? It makes sense then that you would have to build everything from the resources that exist on the island. It's not like, in the conceit of Animal Crossing, you can have barge ships full of raw materials and resources and homes, and so it's still kind of cartoonish that they put up a scrim and then the next day there's an entire museum. But at least they make you sort of wait for the museum a little bit and make you feel like you're sort of contributing to the construction of said museum.
Right. Yeah. I feel like, months from now, when everybody has just restored their islands to, all the facilities are in there and they're just sitting on mountains of bells and furniture and everything, that they'll look back on these opening days or weeks or however long it takes, and I don't know, hopefully fondly, because it's a pretty unique experience of this Animal Crossing game. Just this very gradual kind of unlocking of everything.
I've traveled out to a few other islands. I've visited others, and I have been surprised to see how much time traveling is happening in the Animal Crossing community, because people are not the least bit patient about kind of waiting for those things to happen on the calendar in the game. So they are resetting the clock on their device to be able to kind of speed things up to get to the point where they have more resources, where the town is more developed, where they have more villagers and more money to play with. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to sort of enjoy the pace at which this thing happens and not sort of think of Animal Crossing as a game that is here to be beaten, but as sort of an accessory to the other games that I play in my life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's fine if people want to time travel. It's because they just want to see everything immediately, but it makes me sad because Animal Crossing is such an unusual thing that is designed, I think, to be taken in slowly, to just like see it all as a checklist that you have to rush through. Right. I feel is kind of counter to the design of the game. Yeah.
At least sort of this iteration of the game, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, to all of them, I think, but especially this one.
Right. Yeah, it's funny that you the sort of the entrance conceit for visiting another person's island is you board a little pontoon boat and it flies you over their island before it lands on the water and you get off at the airport. And so you get kind of this bird's eye view of the shadow of your plane flying across. And I was flying across somebody's island today, and there was all of these huge brick and steel buildings and paths drawn out, and they had trees I had never seen before, and the cherry blossoms were in full bloom, and I'm like, what is happening on this island?
You just arrived in the future.
Right. And my island, meanwhile, is, the three of us kind of huddling for warmth under a leaf umbrella, trying to rub two sticks together to build fire. It is just certainly a different state that I am in than the other folks that I'm visiting lately.
This looks great. I've got a tent with like a gas can outside back home.
I just upgraded my tent to a little one-room shack, essentially, and I'm still sleeping in a sleeping bag on the floor.
Oh yeah, no, I just got the first house, but then there is still just like a military cot inside that I sleep on, and I think like a cardboard box.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm cool with it because like that cardboard box is going to give way to like 5 different versions of a bed over the course of the time that I play with this thing. So yeah, I know I'm not going to sleep on the cot or on the sleeping bag forever and ever, because inevitably somebody's going to give me a bed or the plans to make a bed. Then I'm like, oh, that's better than my cot. Let's make that one.
And that's sort of the fun of it, is just, when am I going to be able to upgrade all the furniture in my house? Like maybe the next bed that comes along isn't your dream bed, but it's better than just the little cot you got. So you're just like,
Exactly.
oh, fine, I'll deal with this. That's enough grade. I'll take it.
Right. Yeah, and my experience with New Leaf and Wild World to a lesser degree. You were very Wild World. I was very New Leaf. But combined, we've put a lot of years of our lives into Animal Crossing games.
It's terrifying.
And I would say I probably played New Leaf daily-ish for about 3 years.
Yeah.
And then probably another year of just checking in occasionally, weekly maybe, before it really just sort of trailed off and I would check in like every couple of months. So yeah, I don't expect to do everything in New Horizons on the first day. For me, it's sort of like I want to keep some stuff so that 4 years from now, I'm still sort of like, where the hell did this come from? When did this come? I didn't know this was in this game. So yeah, and again, not to sort of, disparage anyone's consumption of New Horizons. You play it the way you want to play it. But I am not here to see everything on the first weekend, and that's fine.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned the little flyover that you get when you visit somebody's town, because I completely love that. It feels like I don't know. It feels like you're going on an actual plane flight somewhere.
Yeah,
like you're looking out the window and like, oh, look at all these trees and things, and the pilot is doing the little voiceover. It's like local time is like 9:00 or whatever.
And the weather
very
temperature
exciting.
is always comfortable. I've never seen a temperature that's not comfortable.
I wonder if it changes, like if it's raining when you go over to somebody's island.
Or seasonal, maybe it's chilly or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's very exciting, and that is something that was just completely absent in previous versions, because before you just like get on a train and very unceremoniously pop out of their like train station or their gates or whatever.
Right, exactly, and just sort of pop out.
Yeah, but now there's like this whole thing, and I think it's super exciting.
Somebody shared a video today of them. They had invited a friend of theirs, and this was on Twitter. Invited a friend of theirs to their island and had laid out a bunch of things on the ground to sort of send them a message, like an SOS message, because the flyover is kind of real time. So it actually shows your island and anything that's going on there, in real time as you fly over. And they had laid out a bunch of things from their pockets that said, "Welcome, bitch."
Oh, God.
And she was sort of standing proudly amongst the giant letters she had drawn on the ground. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. I need to do that for my friends.
That's amazing.
I thought it was really good. I'll send you the video. If I can find the tweet again, I will put it in the show notes if anyone wants to see it. People are very creative. If I've learned anything,
so quick to just exploit the new the new stuff in this game. That's amazing. Yeah. Can I tell you the other thing that I just really love about this game that I don't think was in previous games, but correct me if I'm wrong. It is the wind. Were other games as windy as this game is?
No, I don't think other games had the horsepower to be able to make the trees sort of shimmy in the wind as things picked up. No, I don't remember any game feeling this alive.
Yeah, it maybe like a leaf or something would occasionally blow by, and especially during like cherry blossom season. I imagine there are some petals floating around, but sometimes you'll just come out of your house and you're like, "Wow, it's windy today," and the the leaves in the trees will be waving around, and like your character's clothing and hair, I believe.
Yes,
it just feels like so much more like you are actually in an environment. It was kind of striking. I did not expect it the first couple of times that it happened.
Yeah. I've had two or three really sunny days, and today playing has been the first day where it alternated sort of rain and kind of overcast and gray. And the periods where it was overcast and gray, it was exactly as you said. It was very sort of brisk and windy, and all the trees were kind of, the leaves were rattling on the trees, and your hair kind of blows around, your clothes flap around, and I was like, oh wow, I don't. This is it was sort of visually very striking, particularly compared to kind of the experiences with New Leaf or Wild World.
Yeah, as much as I liked Wild World, I am kind of like terrified of opening that game up again and just being like, wow, this looks primitive. This game from 10, 15 years ago at this point?
Yeah.
No, has it been that long? No, that's actually, that's terrifying also.
I don't remember when Wild World came out, yeah.
I think it was like 2005. That was like the DS heyday. But anyway, like sort of along the lines of how impressed I am by the wind. I am just so I'm also impressed by how much sort of polish they've been able to put on the just the visuals in this, without making it look, incredibly photorealistic or anything. It still looks very much like a cartoony Animal Crossing game, but you get all these nice little touches thanks to the Switch's horsepower. Like you've got the wind, and like the water in the game is very, very reflective and very cool looking.
Yeah.
And a lot of the animals have a very subtle kind of like fur texture on them. It's all like these very fine touches that are
well, even the
game.
bugs and fish and stuff like that are much more detailed, obviously, than I'm accustomed to seeing them on the 3DS. And then you go into kind of the Critterpedia in the game, which is an app on your phone in the game that allows you to kind of catalog everything that you've encountered, every fish you've ever caught, every bug you've ever caught, and what you've donated to your museum and stuff like that. And in that, there are these kind of very photorealistic pictures of all of these critters. And then you walk into your museum, and the museum is gorgeous and expansive.
Yeah, the museum is amazing this time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the bugs and fish. Like, it's very impressive that they look as realistic as they do, but it's kind of disgusting. Like, you catch a fish and it's like, oh, that is a real sea bass that he just caught. Or, you hold up some sort of beetle. Like, the beetles haven't really happened in the game, but I've seen screenshots of the usual, like,
I caught a man-faced beetle today. I was like, that's just a creepy name. I don't even know where that came from. Yeah.
Yeah. Like beetle hunting in the summer used to be one of the big highlights of the game for me, and now I'm just like, this is terrifying. Just these really like disgusting looking enormous beetles. I kind of don't want to go to that island.
Some of the bugs are aggressive. The tarantulas are very aggressive. The wasps are very aggressive.
Yeah, I don't like that we started in the middle of tarantula season. I forget when New Leaf came out, but like I've mentioned here before, my introduction to Wild World, when that game came out, it was like middle of December. It was very like snowy and tranquil. The tarantulas didn't show up for like 5 or 6 months. Right. Everything was very peaceful.
Yep.
But I think like first night playing this game, I was just like, oh my God, they're out there.
God. Yep. And they charge you. Most bugs run away from you. The tarantulas rear up and then run towards you. There's no fail state or anything like that for anybody who has not played an Animal Crossing game. It just sort of knocks you on your butt and zooms you back to your house. The wasps, meanwhile, make your face look kind of swollen and mangled. You can take medicine, or you can keep talking to villagers and go about your day until it heals itself. But meanwhile, everybody will call out, "Oh my God, what happened to your face, Randy?"
Right. Yeah. Why do you look like that?
But it's fun. It is. It is fun when things that are familiar pop up from previous games, and it's fun when I discover a new thing that the internet has not yet spoiled for me. I dig the slow reveal. I dig the sense of discovery. I think it's just different enough to feel kind of fun and challenging again. But it certainly relies on the things that I like about Animal Crossing games to kind of keep me there, obviously.
Mm-hmm. I like that it does feel like there are things to discover in this game, because that, to me, was not really the case for the last few. They all felt like, well, I'm just here to kind of go through the motions again. But this time, I'm just like, not entirely sure how stuff works this time around.
Yeah.
Which I think brings us back to what we were about to talk about, which is the crafting and gathering, and how much of that there is in this game.
There is a lot of it. Yes.
There's. I spend most of the time playing this probably doing one of those two things.
Yes. Yeah. And then going on a bug hunt with the net that I made, and then the net breaking, and then zipping back to make another bug net to lather, rinse, repeat. I keep saying that, but it does feel like a process. Yeah, and
I'm wondering how long it's going to go on like this, because I feel like after just a few days of playing this, I have decided that it is bad, and something needs to happen to streamline things a little bit. Because, normally you get your tools and you just have them forever, but on this one, you maybe can use them for like 5 or 10 minutes until they explode, and you have to go make another one. which involves gathering up all the raw materials, which is another completely new component that just takes up more time that you could be spending on other things.
Yeah, it does feel like an attempt to sort of fill the game with things to do. And I think Animal Crossing has been derided in the past a bit for being kind of chores the video game. And the crafting thing does feel like an additional layer of chores. Like, I'm at the point already where I start every morning running around my island, shaking every tree, collecting all the loose branches that fall out, and using all of those branches to build my new fishing rod, my new bug net, my new, if I found a stone, I can combine it with a stick to make an axe. And sort of starting my day building anew because everything that I was playing with the previous day has broken already, and I just did not have the patience to do it last night.
I feel like I have more of a routine in this one, or not like I had a routine in the previous ones, but now there's more like imposed on me. Like, I really need to go around and stock up on extra wood and branches because I just need to have a stockpile so I can keep
the routine in previous Animal Crossing games for me primarily was social. It was checking in on my neighbors and running errands for them. And today is this villager's birthday and they are this kind of villager and they like these kinds of things as gifts. So finding those and then checking the high street to see, what's new in the shops today and stuff like that. So again, you're kind of in a world that is constantly changing because it existed before you got there. The interactions I've had with the two villagers on my island have been relatively brief, and much of my time, all of my time, really has been in the churn of building new tools, shaking every tree I possibly can, trying to get new trees planted, new plants planted, just sort of slowly trying to kind of address the aesthetics of the island and my ability to kind of live on it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm taking an even slower approach where I will. I'm not really worrying about the layout of the island at this point. I'm just trying to get everything kind of moved in as much as possible because I know later on, supposedly, you can do tons of just reconfiguration and like move buildings around and even reshape the landscape a little bit. So I'm just telling myself, like, I will wait until I have a better understanding of like what is possible in this game till I really stress out over that stuff.
Yeah. How did you handle kind of the early game decisions? Because
it was awful. It was the worst.
I was going to say, you are kind of famously paralyzed by choices like that. And in previous Animal Crossing games, you didn't get a lot of kind of agency at the beginning to determine kind of what the layout of your town would look like, where your villagers would live, and stuff like that, where you could live even. And I feel like kind of the early hours of New Horizons, it gives you like 100 choices to make about all of those decisions, with not a lot of insight on kind of what the long-term repercussions of those things are.
So here's the other thing. So I didn't even decide whether I was going to get this until like the night before it came out, I think. So I hadn't even thought
just
like
one more decision
else,
you had to make.
Yeah, everybody else had months to just figure out like what they're going to call their island, how they want to set things up, just all the stuff you could be thinking about. So I was doing this all at like 11 o'clock or whenever, like 8 o'clock, because it unlocked at 9 p.m. Pacific on Thursday. It's like, decisions I've been procrastinating on, and I didn't realize I was procrastinating on them. And then it makes you choose from a few island layouts. And then the big thing to me, or to a few of the streamers I was watching as well, because they were kind of like pre-streaming before the game unlocked, just trying to like run through all these decisions again. The big thing is like a lot of people want a specific type of fruit on their island, because when you start out, there's just one type of fruit that grows on your island.
Right.
And I was not incredibly particular, but I was just like, I don't want like pears or cherries for whatever reason. That's it. That's where I draw the line.
Man, people hate pears.
People don't like pears. It's weird.
Yep. I would encourage you to on Twitter search for Pear Gang, because there is a group of Animal Crossing New Horizons gamers who have banded together in their defense of pears.
Oh, this is the Pro-Pear Gang?
It's the Pro-Pear Gang, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
because
fine.
Much of the Animal Crossing community seems to be anti-pear.
I don't know how that happened. I was like, I would have thought it would have been cherries. I'm not a fan of like the way the cherry trees look.
Mm-hmm.
We're having like an in-depth discussion about this on one of the streams. Like the pears, I feel like they just don't look as pleasing on the trees because they're the same kind of green color as the leaves that like peaches or apples look. I don't know. Like it's fine if you have your own opinion about pears or whatever.
I just wanted a different fruit from the one I had previously. I had oranges on my island last time, and I'm like, well, I don't want oranges again.
Okay, I can't remember what I had in New Leaf. I remember back in Wild World, I had peaches, and I was like, well, that would be nice if I got that again. That would be fun.
Yeah. I mean, and plus, 20 years later, the peach emoji means a whole different thing.
Oh my God. Be glad you don't have an eggplant tree. But so anyway, I came down to these two decisions, like what's my island layout going to look like and what is the natural fruit going to be. And the first few times the first time I loaded up my brand new island, it was like cherries or something. So I was like, well, that's no good. So I just deleted my save file and just did the whole character creation process again. Because I was like, okay, it's going to be, I don't know how long this is going to take, but just, a few minutes, maybe an hour of irritation of resetting this game over and over, but then it's going to last the rest of my life, essentially. so I better get everything lined up at the very beginning. So I think I did the whole town creation process 3 times until I eventually got apples, which is fine. I think I got a town layout that I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this is the first Animal Crossing game where it gives you 4 town layouts to choose from.
Couldn't you do that in New Leaf?
I don't remember that.
I vaguely remember them showing you like, well, this is what your town's going to look like. And then if you don't like it, they would give you another one. Maybe they didn't show you all 4 at once.
Okay. I don't remember that. But yeah, I actually read something on the internet about people obsessing over kind of town layout, because there's a few things, like you said, your town layout, like the geography of your town, like where the rivers flow and stuff like that. There's your starting fruit, and there is the color of your airport, which I didn't know was a thing.
Yeah, people were freaking out about that, and I didn't understand. So does it make a difference beyond just what color it is?
No, it's just aesthetic.
Okay.
Yep.
But it sounds like it's something you can't change.
Right. I think you're stuck with that color for the rest of your life, like you said.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I was reading, somebody had like this wish list of like, well, I want peaches, and I want a specific island that has water through the back or something like that, and I want a blue airport. And they were just trying to sort of restart, and had gotten it down to just 4 minutes of their life to be able to go through that entire churn in the hope that all of those things would line up. And then in the comment section below, somebody had like done the math on what the odds were for that alignment to happen.
The exact combination of all those things.
Yeah. Assuming there is no kind of rigging going on in the background that sort of, makes you have a blue airport with cherries or something like that. So yeah, it was ridiculous. And I think I just did not stress those things. I found on the first screen, I found an island layout that I liked, a map that I liked. I lucked into peaches on my island on the first try. Nice. And didn't know that the airport thing was a factor until I had already made that decision. So
yeah, I couldn't really care less about the airport. I think I ended up, I don't even know what it is, but it was not a factor.
It's so unimportant that I don't remember what color mine is either. So
probably just scandalous to all the really hardcore
plaid. It could be plaid for all I know. Yeah. But yeah, other than sort of the nagging persistence of the crafting thing, I've had a really good time with it. I have just delighted in dumping 45 minutes to an hour here or there throughout the course of the day, learning some of the new secrets and exploring just a little bit further and kind of getting into some of these routines. Exploring at night is fun because it's a little chilly and it's a little windy and there's some really nice lighting effects and the moon in the game cycles with the moon in the real world. That's kind of fun too. And yeah, it's been a delight to kind of dip back into an Animal Crossing experience again and find some new things to discover.
Yeah, I've had a good time, like a surprisingly good time kind of easing myself back into it. I like that it is, as we said, it's kind of different than the previous one starting out. I am very curious about where the crafting system is going to end up, like in a few months, if we'll just have the resources to build super nice tools whenever we want, as many as we want.
That lasts forever or near forever?
Hopefully. I mean, it does feel like a chore at this point. But I feel like that, like every Animal Crossing game kind of starts out that way, where you just don't have a lot of resources. It's a very slow build up. So I'm just waiting to get to that point, like to kind of look back a few months from now and just see what everything looks like.
Right.
Because I don't know if I saw. We know that they are going to be patching in like holidays later on.
Holidays and events, yeah.
But I wonder if that. I wonder what other content they may be planning to include with the patches, because I saw somewhere somebody saying that they said that gold tools were not in the game yet, which actually is false. I think that they may have been mistaken, but this was on a whole discussion thread I was looking at on just how weird the crafting feels. Like somebody has essentially gone through most of the content that you can be exposed to in the game at this point, in terms of like what buildings you can install and upgrade and everything. And they say that they have, like, the crafting system feels a lot of like really unbalanced. Certain materials are very much in more demand over other materials, and then there are some recipes that, or there are some materials that just don't get used for anything, which sounds weird. It makes me wonder if they are planning to add more stuff to the game beyond just seasonal events, which I think would be exciting.
Yeah, I agree. I think Nintendo, it would be wise to sort of approach Animal Crossing as kind of a live service kind of game. I would loathe for it to be Destiny or something like that, but that's probably the best way to sort of keep this community kind of engaged and motivated, I think, is to kind of drip feed special events and limited time things and et cetera, into the game to make it feel like kind of appointment gaming.
Yeah. What do you mean when you don't want it to be like Destiny?
I don't know. I really feel like, and I don't have a lot of experience with Destiny, so let's use what's the game that I have more experience with? The Division, where it feels like everything is attached to a clock, where it's sort of like you must play Thursday between 4 a.m. and 6 p.m. to unlock a purple hat that you can't get anywhere else. Or an upgrade to your gun, or I don't know, this enemy will only be in the game during this time in the Division, or something like that. And you've talked a lot about how MMOs use those kinds of things, how Monster Hunter, the new iteration of Monster Hunter, uses those kinds of things to kind of keep the community active. I don't know. I think with Animal Crossing, it needs to be a light touch. I don't want it to be so stress-inducing that I have to set my alarm for 4 a.m. to get up to get a purple hat. Otherwise, that takes some of the fun out of Animal Crossing. Yeah.
On some level, I feel like you should be able to just play this game and like never connect to the internet and just have access to everything. Yeah,
because that's how we've played Animal Crossing every time up to now.
Yeah. But I am super excited by just the possibility that this could become a thing that gets regular updates every few months, like we were talking about last week a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if it is in the form of a balance patch, which fixes the crafting and gathering system, because it's a little sketchy at the moment.
Yeah. There's a couple other little elements of the game that I do want to talk about, but I kind of feel like maybe we should talk about another game at this point. And
you got to pace yourself. You're going to be
absolutely.
Have stuff to talk about next week.
We don't have to put everything Animal Crossing into one show here. So, I don't know. I can promise our listeners that future episodes will not be front loaded with 45 minutes of Animal Crossing. I swear we're not going to do this every week.
Oh, I think they knew this was coming,
but we're going to dip in. So we'll try to be respectful of your time and your investment in this thing, and know that you don't tune in every week just to hear us talking about Animal Crossing. So
right. We'll get back to the good Final Fantasy content soon.
Right, exactly. What you really show up for is Final Fantasy. So we'll modulate the Animal Crossing thing to not take away from that.
There's some new Monster Hunter stuff coming out soon, I believe, also. So maybe there'll be some of that. But, we'll try and keep it varied a little bit.
Amongst other things, sure.
Yeah.
So Resident Evil 3 was the other game we had kind of teased at the top of the show. What... Is that the remake? Is that out yet?
Yeah, so I played the Resident Evil 3 remake demo. I don't believe that the full game is out yet. I think it comes out next month. But I'm a fan of Resident Evil 3. I also thought this would just be good counter-programming to what I was expecting to be the Animal Crossing episode. So it's just a demo. It's like a half-hour demo, so I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but like I said, I'm a huge fan of Resident Evil 3. For some reason, I got into it way more than sort of fan favorite Resident Evil 2 back on the original PlayStation when these games first came out. I was kind of surprised, actually, that they ended up doing a remake of this, because I know that Resident Evil 2 was a big popular one. They just had the very successful, kind of critically acclaimed remake of that last year.
Right.
And I was just like, I didn't end up playing it. It looked really great. Resident Evil 2 is a great game, but I just did not have a huge desire to re-experience that.
So what was it about Resident Evil 3 that was notable or memorable to you by comparison?
So one of the big things about it is more action-based than Resident Evil 2. But Resident Evil 2 is just a straight-up survival horror game. And to some degree, Resident Evil 3 is as well, but you just get more like guns and ammo in 3 than you did in 2 for whatever reason. I believe 3 was the one that introduced like a dodge move or like a quick turn or something that made you a little more agile when you were dealing with monsters, which was kind of nice. But for some reason, I just ended up playing a lot more Resident Evil 3 back in the day than Resident Evil 2. So I thought, well, it's kind of cool that they're making a remake. I should check it out.
And do you, in general, prefer your Resident Evils to be more shooty, actiony?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, I love Resident Evil 4, like one of my favorite games of all time. I realize that it is maybe not the most faithful game to sort of the series history. Like, Resident Evil 4 is definitely an action game first, and a horror game second. But maybe not even like second, maybe like third or fourth down the list. But, I mean, I definitely prefer playing action games over straight-up horror survival games.
Gotcha.
So I like Resident Evil 3, and when I heard that they're doing a remake, I got kind of excited. I was like, I'd play that game again, probably. I've also heard that the remake is expected to be even more action-oriented than, like, the original Resident Evil 3, which I guess I'm excited about.
How exciting for you, yeah.
Yeah, so, like I said, I haven't played the Resident Evil 2 remake, so I'm not sure. Like, I've watched a lot of it. I watched a lot of people playing it and heard a lot of people talking about it, but I don't know exactly how the game played. Playing Resident Evil 3, the remake, it feels much more like Resident Evil 4 than like the original Resident Evil 3 or one of the classic titles, I guess, because you got the over-the-shoulder camera perspective. The controls are a little more modern, so you're like aiming down. You like aim your gun in third person over your shoulder, like you would in Resident Evil 4, as opposed to like classic Resident Evil 3.
Right.
There's definitely more bullets and ammunition scattered around than like Resident Evil 2. But for the most part, it didn't feel as action heavy as Resident Evil 4, for sure. It definitely had more of a horror vibe than 4. Which cool. I guess will appeal to everybody who's just coming off of that Resident Evil 2 remake, because that game looked terrifying.
Well, that seems to be sort of where the Resident Evil community kind of falls in terms of division, is that people either want it to be a straight-up horror game or want it to be a shooty action game with elements of scariness. Yeah, and I think maybe the games like Resident Evil 3, perhaps, that kind of balance that most effectively, or 4, are generally sort of regarded as favorites. Yeah.
I think it's funny how, like, even after 4, it got more and more action heavy, but people just really didn't like either of those. I mean, I know some, like, I'm sure people like some people like them, but yeah. It seemed like there was a huge drop off after 4, and then again after 5, where people will just not even talk about Resident Evil 6.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that most of my experience with Resident Evil is those modern games. I played the first Resident Evil on the DS. Have not played 2 or 3. Failed out of 4 on the Wii or Wii U. I know. I've never played 4 all the way through. I have trouble with those controls, man. It's not fun. I want to be able to walk and shoot, and it makes me crazy.
I went back to 4 a few, maybe like last year, and it was, it took some readjustment. Those are not the most modern controls at this point.
Yeah. And I've co-opted 5 and 6 with friends, and they are big dumb action games.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just Gears of War.
Yes, yeah, essentially. And 7 looks like kind of back to grody, grubby survival horror in every sense. And I'm that's the Biohazard one, and I would love to play that. I've actually had it in my cart on Amazon for probably over a year, and just have not pulled the trigger on it for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. I that one seems like such so much straight horror and survival over being an action game that I think it lost all its appeal to me. Plus, you're just in that
totally
gross
worked
house.
for me. I want that.
I know. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why it's hard to make a good zombie game. Like, every zombie game is machine gun toting dudes mowing down zombies, and I'm like, why can't it be creepy and gross and scary? Because it would be that. It would be, stuck in a house in the woods with your friends trying to stay alive. That could be a cool video game if there were zombies scraping at the door. I'm not sure why.
That's just not as fun as mowing down a bunch of zombies with a machine gun.
Yeah. To you.
Yeah. I'm sure those zombie games are out there. Like, I don't know. I don't want to go down that tangent at the moment, but I don't know. I had a good time playing this demo. The only other thing, like, this was the new thing at the time in Resident Evil 2 or 3, or one of the headlining features anyway, was there's this nemesis monster that kind of stalks you throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of it wasn't new in Resident Evil 3, I guess, because it sort of happened a little bit in Resident Evil 2 on PlayStation 1. But it was like a big thing in Resident Evil 3 because he would just chase you throughout the entire game, essentially. You would have a few moments where he would go away, this nemesis monster. But it was very much a recurring thing. But it's weird this time because with the Resident Evil 2 remake, they took sort of the version of that character that was in the original Resident Evil 2, but only in like half of the game, and I believe they just put him into the rest of the game where he wasn't before. Oh. So for most of the remake, there is this stalker monster just making your life miserable. And that may have been another reason I didn't really see any appeal in the remake, because I really don't enjoy that. I think that's like incredibly stressful. I'm not a huge fan.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I'm interested in this remake of 3 where that is like the big feature, this monster.
That's the hook, right? Because it's Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, right?
Yeah. I don't know if they're calling it Nemesis this time, which is interesting. Oh.
But that was the original subtitle, right?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I'm just like, maybe I'll get this game and just put it down to easy right from the start. Because I'm pretty sure like this happened in the original too. If you drop the difficulty down low enough, they just start you out with an assault rifle and like a side satchel full of bullets. So I was like, oh, could be good.
Just dragging this giant bag full of ammo behind you.
So this is starting to sound more and more like that game you don't want to play where you're just mowing down zombies. But on some level, I'm like, maybe that's the game I want to play.
That's fine. No judgment. You do you.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to be stressed out, really. I just want the gratification of, like, triumphing over all these zombies that are getting in my way.
Sure.
Plus, Jill Valentine is so cool. I'm so happy that she's back for this. It's been a while. But I had a good time with this demo. It's out on PlayStation 4.
Ah, cool. Maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah. I should go and check out at least the Resident Evil 2 demo and see how it compares to this. But it felt like kind of a cool remake. I'm really interested to see how action-oriented it ends up being and how angry people are over the final product.
So is Capcom just remaking all of the Resident Evils in order?
I don't know. That's one of the questions.
Oh, this is not an announced strategy?
No, because I kind of didn't expect them to even be doing this route with Resident Evil 3. And a couple of years ago, I would have said, I don't even think you need to update Resident Evil 4. Maybe just update the controls a little bit so people can deal with it. But after playing this...
stop complaining about it. Yeah,
update it specifically for that guy. But after playing this, man, it looks so good. The engine they're using for this game is amazing. It's much darker than the original Resident Evil 3, but that means they can just really throw on a bunch of cool lighting effects. Like you got this flashlight that kind of sweeps around the environment, which looks really dramatic. All the zombies look really good. It's actually it's really gross, actually. Whenever you get bitten by a zombie, it's pretty disgusting.
Cool. Oh, I'll have to play it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you're into that. But after playing this, I'm just thinking, man, what if Resident Evil 4 looked this good? Just imagine how great that would be. So now I kind of think, like, fine, maybe I'll give them my blessing. They can remake Resident Evil 4, and we'll see how it turns out.
Well, excellent.
The thing is, like, with the 2 remake, it felt like it was such... they went so far back over toward the horror side of things that I worry that, if they remake Resident Evil 4 with the same philosophy, it's going to end up feeling significantly different than the one that I've played, like, hundreds of times. But I'd be curious to see.
Yeah, only time will tell.
Yeah. Maybe if they end up doing that, they can remake Resident Evil 5 and 6 and turn it into something that people want to play.
Yeah, that would take a lot of work, I think.
Yeah, well, hopefully they know better at this point.
All right, well, let's wrap this thing up. If you happen to need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover, or head to our blog at VGHangover.com. Man, the Discord has just been a light. We have created a little separate little nook where we get to hang out and talk about Animal Crossing, and we have been obsessing over it this weekend, sharing pointers and discoveries. But there's also been some really good dialogue in kind of our main chat as well about kind of everything else, every other game, and life in the world in general. So if you want to get your game on and hang out with us, definitely queue up Video Game Hangover in Discord and join the club.
Yeah, I haven't. I feel like maybe I'll stream this soon. Maybe I'll just do a few sessions where I'll just leave my gate open or whatever they call it in this game. Just leave it so people can freely come and visit my island.
Ah, cool.
So I'll again, once I figure out how that'll work, I will announce it on here or on the Discord or somewhere.
Cool.
But looking forward to getting into more of the multiplayer.
Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out again to those 2 streamers I mentioned last week because I forgot to put links to their channels in the show notes. But again, so these are just a couple streamers who have been doing daily either Animal Crossing or kind of variety game streaming, which I think is cool because everybody's cooped up at home and not going out and interacting with people. So it's kind of nice to get just a daily check-in with the familiar people.
Right.
So again, those are it's twitch.tv/idlethumbs or twitch.tv/sarapods. I will definitely put those links in the notes at VGHangover.com so you can go and check them out.
Cool. And this time you mean it.
Oh, I'm going to do that right away so I don't forget.
Excellent. All right, we'll be back next week. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya. You are not the source of the clog.